And welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. Thanks so much for being with us. The Arkansas General Assembly right now is in a sprint. That's what I can tell you. So there is an attempt to try to wrap up everything in the Arkansas General Assembly by next Thursday. Okay, so the first Thursday in April, and this means that committees are being really just clogged up with pieces of legislation. Legislators want to get a vote, want to attempt to finish everything up. Now, there's a chance that they extend the legislative session if they don't get all of their work done. But we've talked a lot about, I guess I would say, protecting our kids and the great legislation. You guys know this, the great legislation that's been out there standing up and protecting our children. But one of the things we haven't talked about is gun rights here in Arkansas. Now, Arkansas has one of the most deregulated, decriminalized statuses in terms of our gun rights. We're a constitutional carry state. You've heard me say this for years. Those of you who've been watching for years, you know this, that we are a constitutional carry state. So there was a House resolution that came across my desk the other day, House Resolution 1041, and it's really interesting, and the reason I love the fact that the House passed this resolution is because in the resolution it talks about grassroots activists. It talks about the grassroots activists who have worked tirelessly over the years to make Arkansas one of the most free states in the entire country when it comes to your Second Amendment right. And so here you see the resolution. This is to recognize the inalienable right. This is by State Representative Matt Duffield. You see that right there. And look at all of the co-sponsors. So State Representative Matt Duffield to recognize the inalienable right to life, property, and defense, and the right to keep and bear arms in Arkansas, and to proclaim the right to keep and bear arms in Arkansas Day. And so it talks about the Arkansas Constitution, the guarantee of citizens of the state of Arkansas to keep and bear arms. And then this is my favorite part. So, whereas citizens' involvement in exercising these rights through grassroots activism has led to Arkansas leading the nation as one of the most gun-friendly states in America, now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 94th General Assembly that the House of Representatives recognize the inalienable rights as set out in the Arkansas Constitution and proclaim the right to keep and bear arms day in Arkansas. So this was not just a declaration, for gun rights, but it was also about declaring the right to keep and bear arms day in Arkansas. What a great day. And you know what? This in the backdrop of everything that's gone on, the tragedy in Nashville and the attack on Christianity, the attack on Christians in Nashville, and that's what this is. All of this talk about Christians aren't persecuted in America. We're only marginalized. Real Christian persecution happens overseas. Not anymore, it doesn't. Not anymore, it doesn't. And the left, of course, are using this to say that the LGBT community are somehow the victims here is absolutely ridiculous. But there's going to the more Christian red states get victories protecting our kids, we're going to see more of this violence, and so the right to keep and bear arms is important to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect your property. Matter of fact, State Representative Matt Duffield, who sponsored this resolution, has a YouTube channel, and he made a video about him filing this resolution, and here it is.
The right to keep and bear arms is one of the most sacred and crucial rights guaranteed to American citizens. It is the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution that has kept our glorious country strong and has kept her people free for nearly 250 years. It is this right, ultimately, which protects our God-given rights to life, liberty, the ownership of property, as well as the right to pursuit of our own individual happiness. The Arkansas Constitution of 1874 reinforces and solidifies these inalienable rights. As Arkansans and as Americans, we understand well the words of the English historian Lord Acton when he wrote, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." Another word for the phrase absolute power is tyranny. In 1776, it was the tyranny of the crown which the brave colonists of the New World were willing to sacrifice their lives in order to defeat. After the final shot was fired and the armies of King George had been defeated, our forefathers said the horrific concept of tyranny, never again. Enter the Second Amendment. It is in the spirit and love for the protection of the individual rights of the citizens of Arkansas, as well as of the United States of America, that I bring forth to this body today a resolution to recognize, to celebrate, and proclaim Monday, March 27th, 2023, as the right to keep and bear arms day in Arkansas.
Protect the Second Amendment, indeed. That could not have come at a more appropriate time, in my opinion. So hats off to State Representative Matt Duffeld for that resolution, and the entire General Assembly for, protecting our Second Amendment. In other news, I do want to talk about tax cuts for a moment. We do have this. Arkansas Democrat Gazette reporting Mike Wickline Sanders legislators sign off on tax cut agreement. This is going to be coming down the pike really quickly. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is they are in a sprint to finish. There you see Governor Sarah Sanders alongside Senator Jonathan Dismang, and we have this $100 million proposal is $100 million a year in corporate income tax, totaling about $24 million. So the top individual income tax rate would be cut from 4.9 to 4.7. The state's top corporate income tax rate would go from 5.3 to 5.1, retroactive to January 1st, 2023. This is, in many ways, a continuation of what the General Assembly has been doing. The idea to just completely abolish the income tax quickly in one fell swoop doesn't appear to be something that a lot of people are willing to do, like a Band-Aid, rip it right off. They want to do what the previous governor did, which was just kind of slowly whittle it down. Any tax cut's a good tax cut, though. I mean, at this point, right? I mean, the government has a gargantuan amount of money. And there's also the fear, as we'll hear in a moment, as I sit down and talk to Senator Bryan King, that with the banking crises that are going on, the collapse of the U.S. dollar, essentially competing financial systems emerging across the globe that are a direct threat to our, Federal Reserve, fractional reserve, tyrannical banking system, if we're quite honest, that there's tough times ahead, and for everybody. You may be able to buy, prices may come down, and you may be able to buy a luxury car for a steal, but a gallon of milk may cost you $20. Okay, so that's what I was hearing the other day. So something to think about. But again, tax cuts are good. The government has way too much of our money anyway. Just on a general principle, it's insane how much money they have, especially here in the state of Arkansas. So those reforms continue to happen on the economic front. When we come back, we're sitting down with State Senator Bryan King. Do you know what it's about? The economic side is actually my secondary questions to him. He has a bill that Big Pharma is melting down over. And I don't know how much of this we can say here on this platform, but Bryan King's going after Big Pharma vaccines and wants a path to, if they knowingly lie about the safety of them, that they can be criminally prosecuted in the state of Arkansas. It is the first bill of its kind in the entire country, and it already passed the Senate, the full Senate. And now it goes to the House, as again, we are in this sprint to the finish line. Big Pharma is even hiring new lobbyists, I'm told, to try to stop this bill. So we will sit down with Senator Bryan King when Conservative Arkansas Media returns. And welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. Thank you so much for being with us. So I had this bill that came across my desk the other day. Let me see if I can't pull it up here, share it with you right here. It's a bill by Senator Bryan King, an act to create the criminal offense of vaccine harm and for other purposes. So I reached out to Senator Bryan King, asked him to come on to talk about this bill, and he joins us now. Senator Bryan King, first of all, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, good to be back talking to you, Paul, and getting interviewed, man.
Yeah, it is. All right, so what can you tell us about this bill? What is, what's the purpose of it? What's the motivation behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to talk about Senate Bill 7 is the prescription drug harm and homicide bill. It really kind of sets up the vaccine bill, but as we know with the opioid crisis, with Purdue Pharma that lied, misled people about the dangerous effects of OxyContin, said it was, addictive in less than 1% and caused all the destruction and death that it did, basically because those executives with Purdue Pharma were millionaires and wanted to become billionaires. So they lied and misled people, got people hooked on OxyContin. We know the destruction on it. So basically, it follows Senate Bill 8 with the vaccine, follows Senate Bill 7, in just basically saying that if you're a executive with a drug company and you knowingly mislead people, omit evidence that causes them harm, you could be criminally charged, no different than a street drug dealer or a country drug dealer.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. And, what's interesting right now, we're broadcasting on, we pre-record these segments, but they get put out on Facebook and YouTube and things like that. And so when I was going to have you on to talk about, anything to do with vaccines, obviously, this video could get censored just because the public, they don't, all these people are shills for Big Pharma, right? Everything, big tech. And over the last 3 years, I think we've all come to be very suspicious of Big Pharma. They don't necessarily have our best interest at heart a lot of times, right?
Right, that's exactly right. And I mean, they're down here in the halls with hiring lobbyists and paying big money to fight this bill. In fact, one of the Big Pharma reps said, well, Bryan, there's laws already that can deal with this. And I'm like, well, why are you spending so much money, time, and effort to fight this one if it's no big deal? So,
okay, so to be clear, the first bill, which was SB 7, it didn't deal with vaccines. It just dealt with,
prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs. Okay, now this one's saying, look, if you knowingly, and we've seen this. I mean, we've had there's been court documents nationally that the judge orders, I think, Pfizer to release their data on vaccines, specifically the COVID one, and then they fight to release. They don't want the data to go out there. So would a bill like this, potentially put on the books? Like now, the state has a law to where, we can go after people if they are putting a vaccine out there that then harms others, because there's all this talk out there about immunity, that big pharma companies have immunity from their vaccines. There's nothing that we can do if we get lied to and we get duped and we take something that then harms us.
Yeah, I mean, the civil penalties part was put in by Congress, I think wrongly, because if you see in the OxyContin case, the civil penalties that we're seeing now, the only way that we're being able to do anything major that can treat what the damages were caused by that. So this bill would be the criminal responsibility. So far, in looking at a lot of different people, nobody has seen anything like this before. I think it's even been tweeted. It's the first of its kind in the nation.
Wow.
And basically, like I said, if we see dangerous effects of the vaccine and go to look into things, then possibly if the drug executives lied, misled people. Now, if they didn't lie, mislead people about the effects, then they have it'd be very hard to prosecute. But if they did, as with the Purdue Pharma case and OxyContin, well, then they need to be criminally held responsible.
I'm going to read directly from the bill. A person commits vaccine harm if the person is an executive officer for a pharmaceutical company and is 18 years of age or older. The person introduces a vaccine produced by the pharmaceutical company into the market. The person knowingly hides, conceals, omits, or otherwise withholds evidence, documentation, or information that the vaccine has dangerous effects. I mean, this is certainly, I don't doubt, Senator King, that they are fighting this with everything they have because
Everything.
there are, they're essentially untouchable, or at least that's they've got the law on their side because they have, engineered it this way to get us to this point. So you're saying, I didn't know this, you're saying that this is the first bill of its kind nationwide.
That's what David Horowitz tweeted that. I mean, there's some others have said things. They have not seen anything yet that shows this. It seems to be the only thing out there that I see that could possibly, be any type of accountability since Congress gave immunity to the big drug companies.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate this bill. This is a bold bill, and again, it's certainly going to get more attention. Where is it right now in the legislative process?
Right now it's in House Judiciary, so it's you have 20 members on the House Judiciary. You know how things work down here. Sometimes funny things can happen, and certainly Big Pharma has stepped up and hired more and more people to fight this bill. So hopefully the members of Judiciary and the House floor will see this as something they need to do to protect their citizens. I mean, just because people have money, power, influence politicians, everything else, then they shouldn't be able to escape justice if they knowingly mislead people and harm people. I mean, justice should be equal.
This bill is so huge because the mainstream media narrative, the global narrative that you hear, is that anybody that says that a vaccine may not be good for you is a crazy kook. So even referencing a scenario. Now, I know the bill is not talking about any specific vaccine, right? And again, we have to be careful because we're on Facebook. But even bringing up a scenario where, a big pharma executive is going to lie, it goes completely against their narrative because we're told constantly that, the medical industrial complex, that there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with what they do. And there's nothing wrong with Big Pharma. That's, a crazy right-wing talking point. And so that's why they want to stop this bill. I really appreciate you coming on, Senator King. Before I let you go, session is probably going to wind down, they say, a week from Thursday. I guess today is the 30th. So what are your thoughts right now on, I know you've always kind of been a spending hawk and a budget hawk. What are your thoughts right now on where we are with all of that? With, you had education, we've got this big prison reform, criminal justice reform coming down the pike. What are your thoughts right now in general on the session and the budget specifically?
Yeah, when it comes to the budget, we're spending way too much. I mean, we look at the economy right now. It kind of reminds me of 2009 when I was down here and Governor Beebe failed to look at everything that was happening in the nation at the time and the bank failures, everything. There's a lot of things that realistically we should be looking at cautious spending. That's just not happening. I mean, they're spending. I mean, the prison bill, which we need accountability in that. I tried to tackle that in 2007, and of course, Asa Hutchinson fought that. But we're going to have to, be cautious. It's not happening this time, and if we continue to go down this path, I mean, there's a lot of dangerous things: inflation, shrinkflation, rising interest rates, bank failures. I don't know what more can be out there that can sit there and say, "Hey, should we be spending much?" And everything they're doing down here is just dependent on future growth and the economy getting better. I'm a farmer, which means you can be a pessimist, I think, and those two go together. But I would definitely say we need to be cautious, and we're not.
Senator Bryan King, it's always great to talk to you, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the
Hey,
program.
hey, thanks, Paul.
All righty, folks. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment. All right, and welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. Special thanks to Bryan King for coming on the program and detailing that very exciting and controversial piece of legislation because, as we previously mentioned, Big Pharma is going to do everything they can to try to stop it. We'll see what happens in the sprint. So there's a group called Opportunity Arkansas, Homegrown Ideas for Real Change. And an article came across my desk written by my friend Nicholas Horton, who is exposing a plan to expand food stamps in Arkansas. And the reason I'm covering this is because, first of all, it's a great article, but second of all, I have just something to add at the end of this argument here. But who's really behind the latest push to expand food stamps in Arkansas? This was written back on the 24th. Okay, I find this fascinating. If you want to know that Arkansas has lobbyists, just like other aspects of, the federal government does that we have to compete with. This would be one of them. So there's a debate over a bill, Senate Bill 306, and food stamps expansion. It's heated up the last few weeks, and it's by Senator Jonathan Dismang. And Nick Horton writes that he has a history of being liberal on welfare issues. But who's really behind SB 306? Okay, SB 306 is being pushed by Impact Management Group, a Republican lobbying firm based in Little Rock, on behalf of, listen to this, Southern Bank Corp., a community development finance institution. So you can read about Southern Bank Corp's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion here at this website, again, opportunityarkansas.org. Here we have some receipts, and so Nick Horton here brings receipts about Bancorp Souths and their contributions to lobbyists. Notably, Impact is fairly significant donor to also Senator Jonathan Dismang. We have the receipts there as well. So in addition to their contract lobbyists, Southern Bancorp employs an in-house lobbyist named Janie Ginocchio. Our readers probably don't recognize her name, but she's a former writer for the Arkansas Times, one of the most liberal blogs and vicious blogs in the country. But Southern Bancorp is run by Gavin and Darren Williams, the former Democrat Speaker designate of the Arkansas House. So now, if you're like me, you're probably asking yourself, this is a great question, why does a bank care about expanding food stamps that they are willing to employ expensive lobbyists to make it happen? Why do that? Well, and why are Republicans and Democrats considering, why are they thinking about that they're going to do this, even though Governor Sarah Sanders strongly opposes it? Nick Horton writes, I can't fully explain that. It seems odd to me, but I can tell you what I do. But I can tell you what I know. Southern Bancorp has been trying to expand welfare for at least a decade. Now, see, I did not know this. This is news to a lot of us, isn't it? This is news to a lot of us. Give them points for consistency. Southern Bancorp has been pushing for welfare for the wealthy for at least a decade. In fact, they have not so subtly advocating the elimination of the asset limit going back. So this has to do with the asset limit. So when do you get welfare? When do you not get welfare? It's determined based on your assets or your income, that sort of thing. In a policy brief titled Making the Case for Eliminating Asset Limits, Why Asset Limits Undermine Financial Security for Arkansans, the authors argue for exactly that. They say expanding food stamps will help Arkansans achieve the American dream. To help Arkansan individuals and families achieve the American dream and put them on the path to economic self-sufficiency, asset limits must be eliminated on TANF and SNAP programs. They also cite former far-left President Barack Obama's support for massively raising asset limits in food stamps. But again, why does a bank care so much about expanding welfare? Well, so here's the kicker. This is fascinating to me. Southern Bancorp has been explicit about their desire to erode Arkansas asset limits to help them open bank accounts. Bank accounts. It's more bank accounts is what they're saying. Don't take my word for it. Read it from Southern Bancorp themselves. According to their policy brief, pesky little things like welfare rules can cause anxiety for people, which might stop them from opening bank accounts and should therefore be eliminated. Quote, the anxiety of asset testing, so they'll be able to basically the government will be able to verify what you got in the bank account and say, oh, you don't qualify. So they're saying that's going to keep them from opening bank accounts with us, Bancorp. It's pretty interesting where you kind of see where all the motivations line up, isn't it? The anxiety of asset testing may prevent some households from opening and sustaining a bank account and may keep them outside the financial mainstream. Now, this is where my antenna started to go up. When I was reading this article, this is really where my antenna started going up. Have you guys heard of central bank digital currencies? Have you heard of the globalist plans? Have you heard of the World Economic Forum plans, what they want to do? They want everybody in the financial mainstream. There is a quest to eliminate cash. And so while this may be as simple as they want more money in their bank, the overall policy here to eliminate asset limits is also going to make sure less and less people have cash. We have been brainwashed in this country. Now, I want you to think about this. We have been, and the police do this too. If they pull someone over and you got too much cash, they assume you're a criminal, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We have been brainwashed and, conditioned to believe that if you have cash, you're up to no good. And while there are people up to no good that have large amounts of cash, folks, if you want true freedom at this point where the government can basically monitor everything you do on the internet, cash is king. Cash means privacy. If you don't have privacy, you do not have freedom. It is that simple. And that's why this article really piqued my interest, because it goes to reinforce the banks, and their whole worldview, which we're about to find out is completely bogus and is a house on sinking sand. Nick Horton writes, therefore, as the authors explain, a key part of the asset limit reform is to encourage people to support savings and holding bank accounts. Oddly enough, opening bank accounts happens to be a big part of Southern Bancorp's business model. This logic is also consistent with what Southern's hired lobbyist told me last session. Southern Bancorp believes that raising the food stamp asset limit will help bring money out of the shadows and into their banks. This is because I was told food stamp enrollees actually have thousands of dollars in cash under their mattress and under their truck seats. A line recently parroted by Senator Dismang on the Senate floor. And they can't put it in the bank, otherwise the government might see it and catch onto their scheme, and it would cost them welfare money. So you get the point. This article, got to check this article out again up at opportunityarkansas.org. Again, it was fascinating to me, which is why I wanted to share it with you here on Conservative Arkansas Media. That's all the time we have for this broadcast of Conservative Arkansas Media. As the session winds down, I'm just going to tell you right now, legislators are getting harder and harder to get a hold of because they're so busy. It's a miracle. It's a miracle we got to interview Senator Bryan King. There were other legislators we were supposed to interview as well, but I promise you, they are so busy in committees. Everything's lasting until longer hours than they were. They're all trying to get through this session. We'll see if they do it. We'll have another update for you next week. My name is Paul Harrell. Thank you so much for watching, and be safe out there, Arkansas.